As of January 1st, 2020, you and I can no longer ignore the privacy implications of our podcasting efforts. But you also don't need to go get a law degree. You also don't need to take up arms. You just need to be smart. Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. Privacy is in the news in a big way as we begin 2020. Of course, it's not brand new. Privacy in digital communications has been an issue for quite some time. Remember digital problems surfaced by a company called Cambridge Analytica? Yeah. So privacy is on the forefront of a lot of people's mind. How big companies with big data are manipulating our tiny little brains into doing things that they want us to do that aren't necessarily in our best interest. That's one issue. There's also the issue of potential governmental oversight. Will jackbooted thugs come cracking down your door when they discover that you spend some time on a forum with questionable values? Whatever. Or just simply, do you really want these big companies tracking what you buy, what you're interested in, serving up interesting ads for you that are kind of creepy and weird? And have you ever noticed that when that lady in the tube, have you ever noticed that sometimes you are viewing things on the internet and you'll see ads for things you just talked about a few minutes ago, and does that mean our smart devices are listening to us? I mean, our cameras are watching us. So anyhow, privacy is in the news. Privacy is in the news, and with CCPA, the California Consumer Protection Act, and GDPR, which is the European regulation that stands for, I used to know, I don't remember any longer. These two things now being the law of the, if not the world, then close enough, because Europe's pretty big, and you probably do some business in California. Privacy has become an issue. And as podcasters, working podcasters, some of us have been thinking about this for a while. Some have been thinking about it for a lot longer than most. And a lot of us have been ignoring it. And as I said at the beginning of the program, you can no longer ignore privacy issues. So you're going to have to do a little bit of educating yourself. This show is not here to educate you all about the vagaries of the GDPR or the CCPA. I'm not here to tell you exactly what you should do to make sure you're 100% compliant in all of this. Because you're a working podcaster. You're probably not a technologist. You're probably not a lawyer. You probably don't need to know all the vagaries of things. You just want to make sure you don't run afoul of the law. And I want to talk to you about that. Some ways I think that I'm going to implement, that I think you can definitely implement as well to make sure that you're safe, that you understand what you need to do to make sure that your podcast is compliant, or is most likely to be compliant. So here's what I'm going to tell you to do. You do have to know something, and you may have to know a little bit more than you know right now, which is a good thing. Which is a totally good thing. Everything I'm going to teach you, everything I'm going to suggest that you learn is something that you should know anyhow. And again, you're not going to have to go get a law degree. You're not going to have to break out your engineering degree or computer programming, none of that stuff. Common sense stuff to make sure that your podcast is on the right side of these coming privacy wars, which are just getting started. And there's really only one thing that you have to do. Two things you have to do. The first one is understand where your possible privacy implications come from. Where might you be leaking data? I know that's scary, but don't think about it as scariness. Just let me just walk you through this one. See, the whole thing around the CCPA, California Consumer Privacy Act, is to protect the privacy of people who, in our case, listen to our podcasts. Now, the only way that privacy is somehow violated is if we're capturing information about those people. Now, the way computers work, we capture information about the computers accessing other bits of stuff on the internet all the time. And you can't stop that. It's going to happen, right? We just simply know. I mean, when you open up your email, it knows it's you. You got to log in. You got to get the information. It knows it's you. So the CCPA, as well as GDPR, and lots of other regulations coming down, are designed to make sure that for the data that you're capturing about people during your podcast, you may not be capturing it on purpose. In fact, you're not capturing it on purpose. It makes sure that you're not sharing that data out with other people, that you are not violating the privacy of others. And why would you? You're a nice person. I'm a nice person. We're not actively trying to violate the privacy of people. So step one is understand where you might be leaking the content. So the way that data gets collected about people is basically the only technology stack you need to worry about as a podcaster is the media files you're serving. That's number one. Your audio files, or I suppose video if you're doing video as well. The RSS feed that you use to get your audio files to various distribution points like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and your website. Those are the three primary things. And I'll give you a fourth one as well. If you are doing any sort of advertising, if people are inserting ads inside of your content, you need to understand that as well. So what I mean by understand is don't worry about how it all works, but just understand who the players are. Your media files are hosted by your podcast hosting company, right? Your RSS feed is probably generated by your podcast hosting company, right? Your website is hosted on SiteGuard or Squarespace or some other service like that. And if you're using any sort of inserted advertising models, if your show's big enough to do that, and you're letting people insert ads for you, you need to understand who those technology players are. Just understand that process, not how they work. If you want to dig into that, knock yourself out, but honestly, you don't want to know that. Just understand who those players are, and then on your website, here's the action item. Go to your website and make a privacy page if you don't have one. You should have one already. I don't think I have one. I need one. Go to your website and make a privacy page and list out those companies and what they do. This company hosts my files. This company hosts my RSS feed. This company is my website host. And this company I'm using to sell advertising. And then put a link to the privacy policy of those companies. And with some little text that says, if you're concerned about this kind of stuff, look, here's the companies that I'm using. Here's their privacy policy. Because they're the ones collecting the data, not me. That's kind of the implication. And that's it. And honestly, guys, that's it for now, for January 2020. I'd be lying to you if I said this wasn't likely to change. I'd be lying to you if I said that some of the companies that you're using today to do those various services that I mentioned, if theirs aren't going to change, if they won't be swept up in this and knocked out. I'd be lying to you if I said that wasn't going to happen. So the last thing that you have to do is prepare to change. So you got all that? So follow the technology path of your files. Make sure you get it from soup to nuts. Anyone who's touching the data, anyone who you're asking to help in the process of disseminating your podcast, as far as you can control. And I mentioned the four primary areas. There might be more. Make sure you understand that and make sure that you're linking to their privacy policies. That's what you got to do, and then prepare for change. Because that's how you survive this coming privacy war in podcasting. Not by jumping into the fray, not by taking up pitchforks, but simply by making sure that you're doing your part in the process. And that's it. Let other people who have more passions than you fight this out. Unless you're the person that has the passion, then go for it. You have a grand old time doing that. So 3 things before I go. 1, ratethispodcast.com/podpont. Told you about that yesterday. It's kind of cool. ratethispodcast.com/podpont. buymeacoffee.com/evoterra. That helps keep the show going. And if you need some help with all of this stuff, check it out at simplermedia.pro. And I shall be back tomorrow with yet another podcast Pontifications. Cheers.